Another great overview of what we can and should do and why we must and why there's abundance waiting right there for us instead of doom and gloom. So with that, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Glen Jenkins, a sustainability leader. He's worked with many organizations over the years, and right now he will share some of the information about what we're doing locally. So Glen, if you'll please join us. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank everyone for coming out today. Back in 2007, your city and county became an eco-municipality. At that time, there were about 26 eco-municipalities throughout the state of Wisconsin. We were the first ones to have both the city and county sign resolutions to join that movement. So you're probably wondering, what is an eco-municipality? Well, they ascribe to following the natural step protocol. Now you're wondering, well, what is the natural step? Well, it was developed in Sweden by Dr. Karl Heinrich Robert back in the 80s. And Dr. Robert was a pediatrician for cancer children that had cancer. And he noticed that over his years of experience that more and more children were coming to him with illnesses. And that it was really increasing. So he started talking to other physicians around Sweden and around the world that he knew, and found the same thing. They put together a bunch of scientists in Sweden, and they started talking, and essentially what he asked them is, if I wanted to destroy the planet, how would I do that? And out of that grew the natural step. And there are 4 principles of the natural step, and I'm going to paraphrase them. But what they say is, number 1 is, in a sustainable society, that people need to be careful what they take from the planet and take good care of it. So when we take coal out of the ground, when we take trees and water, when we take sand out of Wisconsin, we have to do that responsibly and look for other ways or other methods that might be better, so we don't have to use all of those resources in a wasteful manner. Number 2, we have to be careful what we put back into the atmosphere. Right now in America, there are about 75,000 chemicals that we are all exposed to, and we don't know what they're going to do to us, or when they get combined together, what happens once they get inside of our bodies. So what is it that we're putting back in? We're here today gathering to talk about global warming and the CO2 that we're putting back in our atmosphere and the trouble that is causing all of us. So another responsibility that we all have is to be careful what we put back into our atmosphere and be cautious with that. Number 3 is that the world is running out of green space. So we need to keep that green space and show reverence to the wild places that are left on this planet, because they're becoming fewer and fewer and fewer. In La Crosse, we had a biodiversity task force for quite a while where we were trying to bring more of the green space into our community, because it is healthier for us, it makes us feel better, and it's better in general for our whole community. And last, and I think probably the most important one today, is how do we share all of these resources so that everyone can have their needs met? Because, quite frankly, all of us sitting here today waste a whole hell of a lot of stuff that we shouldn't be wasting. We have more than we need. And I've been lucky enough to travel around the world to other places where that isn't the case. And somehow, as humanity, we have to figure out a way to share those resources in a more equitable fashion so everybody can live a good life. So those are the 4 principles of the natural step. Those things, when the city or county decides to buy new cars, build a building, remodel the La Crosse Center, what they're supposed to do is run those 4 principles through when they're thinking, so that they make a better decision about our environment. This has been going on since 2007, so a lot of things have happened. And so Nickles is here today, and Nick is going to share with you some of those things that you may know of, and some of the things you probably don't know of what has happened as a result of we have a city-county sustainability commission that meets quarterly now, I believe, that helps orchestrate and manages what kinds of decisions need to be made to meet the natural step principles.
Hi, I'm Nick.
Hi, Nick.
Hi, Nick.
Oh, come on, you can do better than that. Hi, I'm Nick.
Hi, Nick. Hi, Nick.
Much better. I'm kind of nervous up here, so that helps me get over that.
You don't look nervous.
I am the sustainability coordinator for the Crosse County, so I'm the county's green guy, so I get to work on a lot of these things that the county is doing. Back in 2007, when we became a joint municipality between the city and the county, they created the Sustainable Crosse Commission, and it is the commission's job, and this is made up of county members, board members, and members at large, people from the community. It's their job to every year make sure that the indicators report is done, and I'm here to talk a little bit about that. The indicators are items that the city and county track to show what we're doing, and whether we're making any kind of difference. Now, I've got some information from the city, but I don't have a lot of details on that.
Could you speak into the mic a little bit better?
I'm sorry?
Could you speak into the mic a little bit better?
I can take it out. Yeah. See if we can make that work. Is that better?
Yeah.
There we go. All right. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about the indicators and show you some of the good things that we're doing. Municipal facilities, energy use, the goal of the city was to reduce energy use by 25%, get 25% of our energy from renewable resources. Electricity use is down 9.7% from 2007, and natural gas use is down 2.3% from 2007. But one of the things that we're talking about when we're looking at energy is also where our energy is coming from. And one trend that we've seen from XL Energy is that a lot more of their energy production is coming from solar and wind. And so we're not only just reducing our use because of the things that we're doing, we're actually getting more of that electricity from renewable resources, and we're getting it from our power company. And so that's working well in order to help us get to that goal. Transportation fuel use is down 2% since 2007. It's much short of the goal, but they've also been using a lot of propane to power some of the police cars in town. And the city has just applied for a grant to get 3 electric buses. And so that'll be another way that we can help reduce some of that energy use. Paper usage is down by 10%. They've made that goal a couple of years, and it's gone up a few years. The county's been doing really good with that. Right, we just passed a deal where we're no longer getting our paper slips. Everything is automatic deposit, and so we're reducing some of our paper use that way as well. Citywide energy use isn't tracked. We're hoping to do that sometime in the future so we can show what the entire community is doing. And countywide waste is up 6% since 2007, but recycling is up 241%. I'd say that's pretty good. So you can see some of that single stream recycling that's going on. That's excellent. We're doing a good job there. And what's really great about that is that Harbor's also invented in natural gas hauling trucks to go around and collect those containers. And so they're doing better by reducing the amount of greenhouse gases they're doing. And then there's also electric garbage trucks that are coming online. So we'll be seeing some of those in the not too distant future. Over the last 10 years, the county has saved over $1 million with sustainability. Now that's reducing our energy use, that's putting in LED lighting, all those things that we do as a county to use energy. And so that's your money. That's our money that we're saving. So pat yourselves on the back for that. Our county board passed a resolution quite a few years ago that all of our construction of new buildings, all of our remodeling of buildings, we had to meet LEED-like standards. That's leadership in efficiency, energy efficiency design. And so we've done really well with that. In fact, this new administration center that we have, we took over the Associated Bank. Because of the efficiency design within that building, per square foot, that building uses less energy than just about any other administration building like it in the country. We're doing extremely well with that kind of process. So there's one thing I'd like you to do. Next time you see your county board members or your city council, thank them. Because this is the kind of thing we need to do with our politicians too. It's not just beat up on them and tell them that they're not doing good work. We also need to pat them on the back once in a while and say, hey, that was a good decision. Keep it up, and reinforce that so that we can continue to have our politicians do the things that we want them to do. So we just had a solar site assessment on quite a few of our buildings, 12 different buildings with the city and county. We're looking at hopefully putting up solar on some of our buildings so we can continue to reduce that energy usage. Okay, now I'm going to take off my sustainability hat. Now I'm just Nick. Just to give you some ideas on what you can do as individuals. I'll give you a little bit of my background. My wife and I have a 6.5 acre hobby farm. We have solar electric, solar water, a passive solar sunroof, window quilts on the windows. We heat mostly with wood. I have an on-demand water heater. I have 10 raised garden beds. I have fruit trees. I raised chickens for quite a few years until I got wiped out by a fox. And then my wife also drives a plug-in electric hybrid car. So this isn't just my job. I actually believe in this crap. So, you know what crap stands for?
No.
It's clean, renewable, and profitable. That's my acronym.
I love that acronym.
So, you know, we talk about the things that we want our government to do, but there's responsibility that each of us need to take to do these things within our own homes. I know it's only small actions, but small actions add up. And so, how many of you have had an energy audit on your home? If you haven't, get one. You need to seal up the cracks in your home so that you're using less natural gas and less electricity to heat your home. Change your light bulbs out to LEDs. It makes a huge difference. Change your Christmas lights out to LEDs. I like to take a little Christmas tree I have to talks at schools. It's got 19 incandescent bulbs on it. Those 19 bulbs use 16.5 watts of power. Then I pull out this wad of like 500 LED light bulbs and I plug that in. That uses 16 watts of power. And I like lots of Christmas lights. So get LEDs. You can save yourself a lot of energy that way. The state of Wisconsin runs a $15 billion energy deficit. And when we're talking about climate change, we need to make sure that our politicians and our leaders understand that this isn't some nice, warm, fuzzy thing that we want them to do. This has real economic impact. We have all the potential to create all the energy that we need within the state of Wisconsin. That energy deficit is coal that we import, it's nuclear power that we import, it's fossil fuels like gasoline, diesel fuel, those kinds of things. If we could transfer and convert our energy usage to all the electricity that we need within our own state, that's $15 billion we could keep here. Now $1 million saved creates an average of somewhere between 10 and 12 jobs. By reducing that energy deficit from 15 billion and keeping that money here, we could create 180,000 jobs in this state.
Wow.
That's economic impact. The leading state in the United States, the one that creates the most electricity from wind power, you know who that is? It's Texas. You think they're doing it because it's nice and warm and fuzzy? They're doing it because it's real money. And this is part of the message that we need to use. Yes, we believe in climate change. Yes, we believe in global warming. This is an economic model that we can use to convince our politicians to make change in this country. So that has real meaning. How many of you are registered to vote? How many of you have voted already? Excellent. Get out there and vote now. And when you go, take 10 friends with you. We need to make this change within our state. There are things we've got to do and we don't have time to waste.
Only climate voters.
Drag some people out there, get them registered, get them voting, and we can make all the difference that we need to see within this state. You know, the Republicans right now are worried about a blue wave. You know what happens when those tectonic plates shift in the ocean? They create what?
Tsunami.
A tsunami. They don't need to worry about a blue wave. They need to worry about the blue-nami that's coming. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, Nickles, thank you again so much. And we have a few more speakers, and then we'll be having music and dance led by our dear musicians. All right, now I'd like to introduce from the Minnesota state of the city of La Crescent, I'd like to introduce Ken Tschumper, and he will talk about what we're doing across the river in the land of 10,000 lakes. So Ken?
7,000.
Okay, can everybody hear this?
Yep.
Yeah, I've learned from experience you got to be really close to these things. Well, thank you, Janet, for organizing this. The theme of this Rise for Climate event is Be a Climate Voter. I think that is a great theme and a great admonishment this election to every Democrat, every progressive, and anyone concerned about climate change on Spaceship Earth. I want to talk to you about what happened in Minnesota 12 years ago when voters elected Democrats who were determined to address climate change. 2006 was an election year much like this one is likely to be. A big blue wave, as Nick mentioned, swept Democrats into office in record numbers all over our country. Going into the 2006 elections, the Minnesota House and the governorship were controlled by the GOP. The state Senate was controlled by Democrats. The Dems regained the Minnesota House with 28 new members that year, of which I was one. As a result of that victory, we were able to pass 3 major pieces of legislation in the 07-08 session, which still stands, in my opinion, as one of the most productive legislative sessions in the last 12 years. We passed a long overdue major transportation funding bill. We passed the Freedom to Breathe Act, which banned smoking in public places. And we passed the strongest renewable energy standard in the country at that time, 12 years ago. The renewable energy standard was established for all Minnesota electric utilities, investor-owned, cooperatives, and municipals. It is still today one of the nation's strongest renewable energy standards, requiring utilities to provide 25% of their electrical generation from renewable sources like wind, hydrogen, and solar power by the year 2025. And Xcel Energy, which is the big gorilla in our energy mix in Minnesota, was required to produce 30% from renewables by 2020. And by the way, if you look this up on the internet, all of the states around us are only at about 10%, okay? This government mandate to develop and use renewable energy succeeded beyond anything in our wildest dreams. By March of 2018, this spring, 25% of Minnesota's energy was coming from renewable sources, meeting Minnesota's renewable energy standard 7 years ahead of schedule. Every utility in the state is in compliance with this requirement. Renewable energy has overtaken nuclear as Minnesota's second largest source of electrical generation. We did have significant GOP support for the renewable energy. By the way, I'm a Democrat if you haven't guessed yet. We did have significant GOP support for the renewable energy standard, and Republican Governor Tim Pawlenty signed it, though I don't think that would occur today. I think it had more to do with the reality that we probably could have passed it over his veto than his real support of it. Remember also that that was a few years ago, before the impact of the Koch brothers and the Tea Party was being felt by the GOP. In addition, this mandate caused business and job creation in renewable energy to explode in Minnesota. Minnesota is now in the top 10 in the number of renewable energy businesses. Minnesota's clean energy industry employs over 57,000 workers. Minnesota's commitment to renewable energy continues in recent years. With the election of Democratic Governor Mark Dayton in 2010, Dems again in 2013 passed another strong mandate for solar energy, and solar energy jobs alone grew by 48% between 2016 and 2017. These clean energy jobs are good-paying jobs, averaging more than the state average. In 2018, Governor Mark Dayton's administration and a group of bipartisan lawmakers called for an increase in Minnesota's renewable energy standard from the current standard of 25% by 2025 to 50% by 2030 in just 12 years. This proposal is being supported by every Dem running for a place in state government this year. So what are the So what are the lessons learned from this? First, Democrats address climate change. They passed laws that have a real impact. Minnesota is so far ahead of its surrounding states, not only in addressing climate change, but in growing the businesses and jobs that are rapidly replacing fossil fuel jobs all over the country. This happens because Democrats had control of the government at times during the last 12 years. Secondly, corporations can be made to do things that are in the public interest. Xcel Energy fought the renewable energy standard with all its political muscle, which is considerable. Yet in the end, they embraced the mandate and exceeded it. In 2016, Minnesota regulators unanimously approved Xcel Energy's 15-year integrated resource plan, authorizing the utility to close 2 units of a state's coal-fired power plant. Xcel said it plans to replace the coal-fired capacity with as much as 1,800 megawatts of wind power and 1,400 megawatts of solar by 2030, in just 12 years. Today, Xcel Energy is among the top 10 U.S. utilities for the amount of solar power on their system. And I'm not, you know, there's lots of reasons not to like Xcel Energy, one of them being the CapEx 2020 line, which I fought against. But nevertheless, corporations can be forced and made to do things if the right people are in office. Shifting to the federal level, we made tremendous progress on addressing climate change under President Obama. We saw approval of the Paris Climate Agreement, the Clean Power Plan, and the doubling of vehicle fuel efficiency negotiated with the auto manufacturers become reality. Because 6 of the 8 years Obama was president, the GOP controlled the House and/or Senate, he and the Democrats were not able to pass important legislation that would have moved this country into the leadership in addressing climate change on our national and international level. As a result, all of President Obama's initiatives were by executive order. Of course, the Trump administration is using the same executive orders to pull out of or reverse each of these initiatives to address climate change. It has pulled our country out of the Paris Climate Accord. It has substituted a voluntary, meaningless replacement for the Clean Power Plan, and it has cut in half the requirement for improvement in vehicle emissions. The greatest tragedy in American politics in my lifetime, and I've been involved in politics since the anti-war movement of the 60s and 70s, is that Hillary Rodham Clinton was not elected president. She would have been a climate change champion. She would have continued and expanded on the work of President Obama. She would have surrounded herself with people in the EPA, the Departments of Interior and Energy, who understood the pressing need to address climate change. And she would have continued the U.S. leadership in the Paris Climate Agreement. The world, as we all know and we've heard referred to here today, the world is literally burning up because of global warming. 17 of the hottest 18 years on records have occurred since 2000. Many states and many cities are continuing important work on dealing with and mitigating climate change, but there is no substitute for leadership by and from the federal government. Think of how much better life would be in this country today if Hillary was president, on climate change and all kinds of other ways. Instead, we have a lunatic, unhinged Donald Trump who has the intellectual capacity of a small child, not only ignoring climate change, but appointing people to his cabinet that are aggressively undermining the actions of others. And worse yet, we have a Republican Congress unwilling to stand up to the Trump lunacy and remove him from office. If you are even a fraction of an inch on the left side of the political spectrum, if you have even a small bit of concern about climate change, you have to understand that the only way anything is going to happen is if Democrats win all over this year. Sadly to say, there are no Republicans in Congress that I know who will champion addressing climate change. Like so many other issues in our politics today, the reality of climate change due to global warming is a partisan, polarizing issue like every other major issue facing us. Our country is sharply polarized. There are no shared values, and that is not going to change anytime soon, in my opinion. If we are going to change the course of climate change and global warming, we need We need a united front from everyone on the left side of the political spectrum. In 2016, we did not have that united front, and it cost us dearly. Political power in America is in the middle class. We can make the arguments for addressing climate change in a forceful and relevant way to every middle class voter, and we've heard quite a bit of that today, if you think about it. Climate change and global warming are not some abstract concept off into the future. They are real and they are current, and the negative impacts are real and current. People are dying every day all over the world from global warming, from heat waves in East Asia to extreme rain and flooding in Central America, to hurricanes on the Gulf Coast, and to record wildfires in California. We need a united front in this election. Democrats need to win every seat in every race in every state. Every Democrat running for office in Minnesota is championing greater action on climate change and global warming. The next speaker is going to be talking about the great climate action candidates here in Wisconsin that deserve your support. So do your part, talk to your friends, your relatives, your co-workers. Don't miss voting. Don't waste your vote on third-party candidates. We need a united front, people, to change our life, meet the challenge of our lifetime.
Thank you, Ken. It's true, we cannot take this issue too seriously. It is extremely urgent, and I appreciate everyone that's come today. This is a hard issue to talk about. No one wants to face all the dangers that we do, but as Casey mentioned, think of all that we can achieve if we force those in power to do the right thing at all levels of government. We have so much to look forward to. I'd like to invite Bryan Krenz up to the microphone from La Crescent. He is with the Houston County Democrats, and he has a statement to share on behalf of some of our candidates. Tim Walz is running for governor, and as Ken mentioned, we're working on a renewable energy standard of 50% by 2030. Tim Walz, governor candidate, is ready to sign that bill as soon as it lands on his desk. So let's elect him in Minnesota as governor. He will not obstruct that bill. He will sign it. And others that will push on that will be Thomas Trias, and he is running across the river to work in the House for Houston County and Fillmore County, and Bryan can share his statement. And then we'll have one for from Senator Smith and also Dan Feehan. So first to share one from Thomas, and then we have a short one from Dan Feehan and Senator Smith. Bryan can cover the men and I'll cover the women.
Hi everyone, how are you doing today?
Great.
So this is from Thomas Trias. He is running for the State House of Representatives over Minnesota, Southeast Minnesota, Fillmore County, and Houston County. First, I would like to thank the organizers for hosting this event and for taking the time to read a statement. At this point in time, one of the most consequential and pressing issues in our environmental concerns. As a fifth-generation Minnesotan family farmer, I'm committed to preserving our land, rivers, and bluffs so that in 5 generations from now, our prosperity will, with other legislators in calling for our increase in the renewable energy standard to 50% by 2030. And as state representative, I will work to create jobs whilst keeping our environmental concerns in the forefront of the conversation. I believe that as Minnesotans and Americans, with hard work and innovation, we can be world leaders in making our world cleaner, safer, and more prosperous. Thank you.
So again, that was a statement on behalf of Thomas Trias of Spring Grove, running for Minnesota State House. And as I mentioned, Tim Walz is running for governor and would be giving up his congressional district 1 seat in Congress. And to try to take his place would be Dan Feehan. And he grew up in Red Wing, and he has a statement to share as well. Bryan, would you share Dan's short statement with us?
Hi everyone. So this is from Dan Feehan, as she just mentioned. Addressing climate change is the right thing to do so we leave a cleaner world for our children and our grandchildren. But it will also help our economy here in southern Minnesota and keep our country safer in a time of global instability. In fact, over the past 40 years, the Department of Defense has been calling climate change one of the greatest threats in our country's national security. By refusing to address climate change, we will exacerbate extreme weather events, food shortages, armed conflicts, and migration patterns around the world. The science is clear that if we do not take immediate and dramatic steps to curb this impact, future generations will suffer enormously. I believe that we need to move towards clean and renewable energy, and the rest of the country should follow southern Minnesota's lead with more wind farms, solar panels, and biofuels so that we can address the challenges of climate change together.